Let's bring back in David Curry, the president of Open Doors USA, to talk more about this. David, we thank you for staying through the break. And let us get to the list itself. Of course, it has to be troubling year in and year out to catalog these nations. I believe we have a graphic, if my memory of cartography is correct. I think you call this a Mercator projection of the world, a flat map where we see the 2015 World Watch List, and the nations depicted in a deep red pose perhaps the greatest danger. Let's begin in the Middle East. If you are to give us the nations that are most hostile toward Christianity, what would those be?
Well, it's very dangerous right now in Iraq and Syria. I know that people think of the Islamic State as a part of that scenario. What you have in Syria is a different maybe impetus for how that all got started with the failure of the government and the dictatorship there. But that is a very similar situation now on the ground. You have countries like Iran, which has gotten more dangerous for Christians, even though there's been a charm offensive from their new government that has not seen an improvement in the situation on the ground for Christians. They're not free to choose their own faith. They're not free to read a Bible. They're not free to sell a Bible or pick up a Bible. The very simple things that people here in the West come to understand as freedom of just even seeking religious freedom, that's not available there in Iran, Iraq, Syria, those countries.
Let's move now to the entire continent of Africa. As we look at those areas that continue to persecute Christians, what nations on that continent top the list?
Well, you have Somalia at number 2, is a very dangerous country. You have a failed government. You have Islamic extremists there who attack Christians, very dangerous. The kind of brutality that happens in Somalia is the same kind of brutality you've heard about in Iraq from the Islamic State, beheadings, people being attacked. Very dangerous to be a Christian there. You have a rise of violence, incredible violence in Nigeria, Sudan. It's continuing to grow. It's present all the time.
David, during the first part of our conversation, you mentioned that North Korea has topped the list for the last dozen years. Is North Korea still number one? And what else do we see in Asia and in that part of the world?
Well, North Korea is still number one. It's going to remain number one. The really scary fact is we don't even know how many Christians are being executed in North Korea. We have a lot of resources. We're connected with the network of folks there, but we just don't know. So there could be many, many more people being persecuted, executed in North Korea for their faith than we even know. There are episodes that you could see in Malaysia. All of a sudden, there's issues through the government, through the law, where people are trying to restrict the use of the name God in Malaysia and other countries throughout the Asian region. So it's still yet to be seen what's going to happen in some of these countries. They rank a little lower in Asia. China is, I think, still undecided as to what they feel about Christianity. But certainly Christians have a lot more freedom in China today than they did 30 years ago. But you still see issues there where the government is using their laws, their zoning laws, to restrict Christian expression, and that's troubling.
Final 30 seconds, a softer form of persecution, if you will, not obviously killing or torturing people, but a cultural bias turning against Christianity. Does that include most of the Western world?
One of the issues that we try to measure and we're looking at over time, it doesn't show up a lot on this list because the issues of violence are so strong, but we need to look in the future towards what I would call aggressive secularism and its impression on the expression of Christian faith in the West.
And we will remain mindful of that. Unfortunately, we'll have to leave it there. David Curry of Open Doors USA, we thank you for your time, and America's Forum continues right after this.